You're watching HCAM TV.
Hello, Hopkinton. Welcome to the Hangout Hour. First question, can anybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great, because I'm just running in from teaching the class. Thank you, Laurel.
You're welcome.
And thank you to everybody who is joining us on this episode. It is Monday, November the 16th, and we have an hour of chat and conversation for you. The first half hour, we'll be talking with Laurel Kuba from the Sanctuary at Hopkinton. And in the second half hour, we'll be having a Ask the Town Manager segment with our town manager, Norman Kamalo. So in either guest, we invite you, if you have any questions or comments or thoughts you'd like to share, please feel free to send us an email to studio@hcam.tv or leave us a comment on our Facebook page or our YouTube channel where we are streaming live on both. So we hope you guys had a great weekend. And Laurel, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be back. And I felt like your intro there was, spiced up since the last time I was on. So,
well, it's either the experience or it's the pressure of running in at the last second.
No, meaning your graphics and everything and the music. It was really nice.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, good job.
Thank you. We I have a little button in my office that I got from a person who I respected several years ago now, and it says, "My job is continuous improvements in productivity and professionalism."
Wow. So you're doing it. Good job, Jim.
We're trying. Thank you.
And all the staff. Yeah.
And guess what? I had somebody talking about you in a conversation I had just this morning.
Uh-oh.
Well, no. She's one of our great producers, Mary McLeod, who produces the Senior View. And she was just happened to be mentioning how much she loves watching you and Bruce and everybody else on Sunday mornings on Verizon Channel 30. So congrats on that.
Thank you. Isn't that nice? No, Mary has been a lovely encourager, either through email or Facebook or something. So that's so kind. That's really nice.
Yes. And that, you know what? A encourager is really the description for Mary. She's just awesome.
Yeah. I didn't know we shared, airtime on the same channel. So that's fun.
Yeah.
That's great.
Mary's been contributing to this channel before this channel even existed.
Really?
Yeah. Before it was HCAM TV, it was called Hop TV, and it was run by the cable company. And she used to produce the show there.
Oh, wow. So cool.
Yeah.
Well, no wonder she's watching then. That's awesome.
So let's talk about what's happening. Let's talk about the Sunday service.
Yep.
How is it going? Any kind of feedback that you're getting or just general thoughts?
Yeah. We think it's going very well. When I say we, meaning Community Covenant, St. Paul's Episcopal, and the Sanctuary at Woodville. We are still incredibly grateful to all of you at HCAM for your support and your technical knowledge. It's just wonderful. We're in a rhythm now. It's been 7 to 8 months. So we're in a rhythm since Easter. We've been doing this, and we love working together. We love working with you. Bruce and I have been tag team preaching. He's been doing. He's been preaching on the book of Genesis in the Old Testament. I've been preaching on the book of Acts in the New Testament, beginning this fall. And that's been really fun, looking at the combined themes of God's creation, God's calling, God's sending, God's people. And so that's been fun. And sometimes we have dialogues instead of sermons, which are one of my favorites, where we just throw out questions and let people talk about the passage. And I'm always very encouraged, and I just get a lot of insights when people do that, when they talk more freestyle. One of the things that I say to people when I send them the questions is, look, you are not allowed to study. You look over the questions, you look over the passage, and come with your honest insights. And so it's really fun to get that. Yeah.
That's
So
great.
it's going well. Yep.
Yep, that's great. One of the things that I really love about it is during this time when we've had to separate and quarantine and, really be careful, is that you are committed to doing it live, because what you're really doing is replicating the Sunday gatherings that would happen at various churches. And my focus has always been, we can't gather together, so let us try to get as close to that as we can. And having the information be presented live at the same time that people are at home receiving that information, that's really as close as we can get. So, and not only that, when it's live video, it looks better than recorded video.
Yeah.
So,
No,
but that's just
yeah.
a technical thing. So that's what I love about it. I actually volunteer and I do my church service live on YouTube as well. And it's just, really, really affirming when
Yeah.
people log in and they're joining live.
Affirming is a good word, Jim. And yeah, how's it going for you with your church? Is that going well?
Yes, it is. It really is. There was a lot of concern at the beginning, with people not coming in, if the support would still be coming in and could they keep the doors open. And it's going really well. And a lot of people are watching it online. So they're getting it. We're also on our community channel, not live, but on a taped replay. So people who don't watch it on the live stream might get a chance to watch it at home.
Yeah.
And then, the church is having a lot of conversation about when they're going to open and how they're going to open, which is a very difficult time if you look at the way the numbers are going in Massachusetts. Yeah. I was saying in the summer, we have to wait until after August and September, and we have to see how things are going. And unfortunately, it's looking like they're saying it could be a very difficult winter. Mm-hmm. Although it's nice to see the schools have turned out to, looks like they're not super spreader events like people were afraid that they might be. So, I think it's really great that kids are able to get back in school as much as they can. Mm-hmm. It's really, really great that there may be a vaccine in the first quarter of next year.
Oh, yeah. You're not kidding. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So wonderful. Yeah. Yeah. I think like you've probably seen or heard of too, probably the hardest or biggest casualties, and I don't mean this to be flip about those who have died, but the casualty of this time are people who are single or elderly and living on their own and have no way of connecting. And that's, my heart is very heavy for those folks. And so, again, you all provide a great service, at least in the town of Hopkinton, and for those who can do YouTube to at least help them feel connected. I know with some of the church people at the sanctuary, that's huge. So yeah, so good.
That's great. Now listen, Laura, you're not interviewing me here.
Okay, all right.
But thank you. I really do appreciate that. And I'll tell you, the feedback that we've gotten on the Hangout Hour has been amazing. It's everything and more that I was hoping that we could be during this time of forced separation.
Wow.
So tell me what's happening at the sanctuary.
Well, we actually, so Sunday mornings, we have a few folks who come And what they do is they come and socially distance and wear their masks, and they watch the service in our sanctuary on the big TVs. So that's been fun. Really, we have a handful that come who feel safe enough to do that. Um, so that's been fun. It's been one way of providing a little bit of connection, and we welcome people to do that if they feel comfortable with that. And then we have, since this summer, we have had some small scale gatherings, 10 people, no more, where we did, typically what the sanctuary does is offers a place for retreat for people. Of course, we don't have overnight facility, but day retreat, and a meeting place for different churches and different events. So we've actually had several of those this summer that have worked really nicely. Um, we've of course adjusted to COVID for it in the building, been super, aware of disinfecting everything.
Yes.
And Bill, my husband, even provides meals, and he has packaged them now beautifully, like in a really safe COVID way. So still home cooked, but and delicious meals, but everything is individually handed out. So that's been good. And yeah, we're getting ready to put out a video of kind of letting people see a cross section of a lot of different friends who have been involved at the sanctuary, and put it up on Facebook and send it out to supporters to let them know how the sanctuary is being used, not just in town, but all over Metro West and Worcester. So yeah, we've been doing a lot of things.
Wow, that's really awesome.
Yeah,
I'm glad to hear that. It's so important. We have to put off so much stuff, but I always like to say we're not, we're postponing.
Right.
We're not canceling, and
Yes.
we will get through this, and we will get back together.
Right. And finding creative ways to do things to keep community happening. I mean, you've been in the sanctuary, Jim. It's very it's cozy, it's small, so it really lends itself actually to groups of 10 nicely or smaller. And so in a way, Bill and I say we were kind of made for this. The building was kind of made for this. Not that we'd ever choose that, but so that's
Right.
been, yeah, it's been kind of interesting to see that.
That's good.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not sure. I'm just going to ask this, but does your son have a role at the sanctuary too?
He does indeed. He has, so he's on the staff. There are 4 of us on the staff. And Gethin, our son, actually, he does a lot of the grunt work, like setting up for, events. But he also is our tech guy, which, believe me, my husband and I being in our 60s, and, we need that. So he does a lot of, he kind of instructs us on social media, does different tech stuff for us. And he's just a great addition. Plus, he's a millennial, so he gives that insight into things we're doing, either to say, no, mom and dad, that's just way passe. We all need someone like that in our lives. So yeah.
I'm
So
not sure if we all need that. I have a 20-year-old, and I get a lot of that.
All right. Yeah. Well, when I say that, we need it for, the ministry, because we do want to be more engaging of, young, I want to say young adults. They're adults, but people who are in younger generations. So yeah, that's been
Yes,
good.
that is important. And
Right.
it's nice. It's a fresh perspective.
Yeah.
It reminds me a lot of, questions and thoughts that I had when I was young too.
That's right. Oh, you have your dog there. I
That's
love
our
it.
little mascot. Yeah, sometimes he gets a little. Well, just send him. We'll send him on his way.
Oh, fun. That's great. That's great.
So tell me about what you are covering. You mentioned some of the books that you've been exploring on Sundays during the morning service.
Right.
Tell me about some of the experience that you've had and some of the topics that you've covered and, things that you found interesting.
Mm. Well, this yesterday, Bruce did. I thought he knocked it out of the park. He did. He covered the story of Cain and Abel in the Bible, which is a very challenging story. For those who might not know about it, Cain and Abel were the offspring of Adam and Eve, and they both bring an offering to God, Cain and Abel, and one of their offerings isn't acceptable to God, and so Cain kills his brother Abel because Abel's offering was acceptable to God. And so it's looking at that, and it's a hard story to, as we say, theologically exegete, or really look at in its context, and try to be true to what the text is saying, but then also bring it into our culture today. And I just thought Bruce did an awesome job and really brought it into our context today about what he talked about is, what do we do with anger?
Mm-hmm.
And if our society ever needed that message right now, it's right now. And he wasn't shy about that. So that was just fabulous. And then, I just actually preached last week, or a week ago, on Acts chapter 4, which is one of my favorite chapters in the Bible because, of course, Acts is all about the very beginning of the church, the birth of the church, a new creation, and God sending God's Spirit to live in human beings. And when God does that with his disciples, they do amazing things. They do miracles, they do things. And Jesus said, "You will do even greater things than I did." And what I love about that particular chapter, chapter 4, is that Peter and John perform a miracle outside the temple. They make a lame man walk. And of course, the temple rulers are all up in arms about this, and they haul Peter and John in, and they try to they keep them in prison overnight, and they try desperately to convict them of something but can't find anything. And the line I love in that is, I think it's verse 13, that says, those religious rulers and leaders and scholars looked at these two men and said they knew they were unschooled, ordinary men, but they had been with God. And that's what completely kind of bowled these religious leaders over. And so the importance of our being with God, our relationship with God, and intimacy with God, and how, that does more than any academic, piece of paper. so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So that's some of the stuff we've been covering.
So,
Yeah.
let me ask you a question.
Okay.
This may be a hard one, but
Okay. I can always say I don't know.
Okay. As long as we're comfortable with that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Where do you see God in 2020?
I see God all over the place in 2020. I realize it's been an incredibly hard, difficult, deeply painful year for many people. But I do think that God is actually working to get our attention, and not in some kind of manipulative way, but in a way of drawing us back to what matters in life, relationships, um, knowing him, being still before him, listening to him, looking for him, experiencing him. And I think if we do that, and that can be hard for us, for sure, but if we do that, our lives are going to be much richer. And that, from how I see the Bible, it's all about relationship with God and how to be in that personal relationship. And that's what God wants. And that's what we were made for. And so the more that we practice that and enjoy that, the more full our lives will be. So even though this has been forced, I mean, it's been forced, our being at home, our not being able to be with other people. Hopefully it's also help us maybe examine a little bit more the importance of relationships, certainly human relationships, but also our relationship with God. And then, on the other subject of the election and that whole process and what's happening with our nation and people's, I'll say, kind of their high alert mentality and sensitivity, I think it's a tremendous call for us to remember who really is in control. And so to pray into that and to pray for our nation, a great call to pray for our nation, and also to look for ways that we can learn to love our neighbor as ourselves, especially when our neighbor sees things totally differently. So those are ways that I see God in 2020.
Okay. That's really good.
Yeah.
Now, I'm
thanks.
curious, you talk about relationship, you talk about a rich life, you talk about a full life. How would you describe that to a person who may be interested, but also skeptical? Shouldn't I rather just spend my time making money so I'll have a comfortable life?
Well, I grew up with my father who did that, that was kind of his goal in life. I mean, he was a very good dad in many ways, and I know he loved us, but he really put his attention on making money. And one thing I learned from that is he never made enough money, never, in his estimation. So, and the thing is, we were, I remember when we were maybe lower middle class, if you want to call it. And then my dad just kept working, climbing the ladder, the corporate ladder. And as he made more and more money, it didn't change at all his fulfillment in life. And he kept complaining that he wasn't making enough money. And there was always somebody to turn to and look to and say, I'm not making what that person's making. And so it's not that money can buy some nice things, but they don't deeply satisfy us because we weren't created for, inanimate objects to really satisfy our souls. And money's a good thing, but having that as your God or your main goal, I think, well, I know it really warps people in terms of their, in terms of what's really important in life. If that makes
That's so fascinating that every time you say something, it's like really interesting because one of my favorite stories that I've read is one time when the original Rockefeller had more money than probably anybody else in the world at that time. He was approached by a journalist who said, Mr. Rockefeller, you have like so much money. Like, how much is enough? And you know what his answer was? Just a little bit more.
That's right. That's right. And I think, Jim, if I recall, he had a very strong like Christian background. I don't know if he himself was a practicing Christian, but I think he was raised in that environment. So isn't that interesting?
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Really,
Yeah.
it really is.
Yeah.
I find it really interesting to look at people who are the wealthiest, and not only the wealthiest, but also the most powerful among us,
Yep.
and how that changes how people react and respond and speak to you. Almost like, it just changes everything, and it really just warps everything.
It does. It does. I mean, again, personality wise, I'm a lot like my father. So I've really had to and I still have to watch that because I think I have in me that discontented nature.
Mhm.
And so it always calls when I feel like priorities are getting out of whack in my life, um, that maybe I'm getting kind of addicted to something like shopping or looking for my thrills elsewhere. That's when I know now that that's a real cue for me that I'm making something else my God. I'm making something else an idol. And, I've lived long enough to know now that that might have a temporary fix, but it's not going to have the long term fix. And I really want the long term. I want to be a person of substance, of joy, of depth, and somebody who can learn to be content in all things.
So
So,
that's really
yeah,
fascinating.
yeah,
I want to ask this before I lose it,
yeah,
because so many things like, oh, I want the brand new car. Well, the new car gets old in 5 years, so
right.
I need another new car. You said you want the things that last and long lasting things. What are those? What do you want?
Well, something for me that is really, really soul satisfying is deep relationships. Um, so that being with God and also with other human beings. So not relationships that are about passing facts back and forth or having a lot of pretense, but relationships where you can really be vulnerable with each other, uh, share deeply your struggles as well as your strengths, um, but where you're real with each other. So I value authenticity big time. Um, I love to laugh. So I love to have fun. I love to find places to laugh and laugh hard. And I also, for me, I find tremendous joy in beauty and beauty of all different kinds, whether it's in creation or beauty in art. So those are things for me that I've learned are deeply soul satisfying, that when I feel most satisfied, it's probably because I've had good doses of those.
Hmm.
So yeah, does that answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah.
What leads me to my next question.
Okay.
So I find, let's see if you think this is a true statement, that many times the advice that you would get from the Bible is contrary to the advice that you would get from society or our culture.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you.
So,
Yeah.
is it hard to teach people in today's world who it seems very antithetical?
Right. Right. The answer is yes. And that is why from what scripture teaches, um, it is not my job to convince somebody. Um, it is my joy to be able to talk to somebody about God, about Jesus, about his sacrifice on the cross and what that means, and the fact that he is a living God right now, and he lives inside of us, those who want to follow him and have that intimacy. But his kingdom is not something that is fully here on earth yet. Most people will be familiar probably with the Lord's Prayer, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And the Bible clearly teaches that God is in charge and sovereign, and his kingdom reigns, but it isn't fully here yet on earth. It's here in God's people, but it's not completely in charge yet here on earth. And so it's hard to help teach people to lean into that kingdom that is unseen. Um, and yet, when we read scripture, we get lots and lots and lots of great uh, stories and counsel and wisdom on how to do that and why to do that. And again, I've seen now that I'm in my 60s, I've seen too much that when we don't do that, life is very unfulfilling
Mhm.
overall. Um, but it's hard to, help people understand that.
All right. Well, Laurel, thank you so
You're
much
welcome.
for, it's always a pleasure to talk with you.
I
About
enjoy
those
it, Jim.
things. Yeah.
Thanks for
And,
inviting me.
oh, of course. And I hope
Yeah,
that it's not as long until the next time we have you back.
great. That'd be great. Thanks. Thanks for
Never
having me
finish.
on.
You're welcome. We never finished conversation about your thesis, and we need
All
to get
right.
back to that.
That's it.
All right.
Okay. Great. Have a great day.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Okay. And now we are entering our second half of the Hangout Hour, in which we'll be chatting with our town manager, Mr. Norman Kumalo, and seeing how things are going in his sphere and at Town Hall and all around Hopkinton. So, Mr. Kumalo, thank you so much for being here today.
Good afternoon, Jim. Thank you so much for having me.
It's great. So I see you are, I believe you are back at Town Hall at your desk, I assume?
Yes, I am. Happily so.
Now, I know I've seen you there at some meetings too. So how long have you been back in the office?
Oh, we've been back in the office now for a while. We opened up Town Hall to the public uh, perhaps 2-3 months ago.
Okay.
Yes.
And actually, well, so that's interesting. How is public access to Town Hall working? Is there a process?
Yeah. So far, in fact, specifically, we reopened Town Hall back to the public on August 10th.
Okay.
Appointments are required due to the state's COVID-19 limits on building occupancy. And so far, this process seems to have been working well. People call the respective department that they would like to do business with, make an appointment, show up here at Town Hall, go through a few questions, and if they need to be inside the building, they come inside the building. For the most part, the foot traffic is up to the third floor where we have the inspectional services.
Okay. That means there were several months where nobody could, the public could not get into Town Hall because you had to be closed for COVID-19. How did that work? I mean, did everything transfer to online and work out okay? Or were there certain things that had to be just delayed and put off until you could get back face to face?
For the most part, Jim, most of the town hall activities transferred to online business. And this was successful largely due to the investments that the community has made in our technology. Clearly, any transition has aspects that work and some aspects that may not work. I can tell you, there are residents who really like to do face-to-face business. And there were some instances where we had to make those accommodations. However, for the most part, the transition to online business did work fine.
That's great. I do know from here, I have a call from a person who she doesn't use the internet. So she accesses all of our programming on the channel. So that's a really good affirmation, for what we're doing. Many times people are like, oh, put it on YouTube, put it on the internet and Facebook, and then that'll be great. But there are a lot of people who are more comfortable sitting on the big couch at home, watching the big screen TV, or don't really have a computer that they would surf the internet with. I actually have a person who's a crew member at HCAM, and she doesn't have an email address. And that, I was like, wow, that's how I communicate. So that makes me think about the process too, and making sure we're not leaving anybody left behind.
I will tell you, that's a very good point. I look at this from two perspectives. There are people who we know about as individuals who may not be connected via the internet. There's also a group of individuals that we may never know about.
Mm.
And that's the group that I am concerned about. People who we don't know about and may desire town hall services, but we are not able to know that they are in that state. However, I will tell you, for the most part, the town's emergency management group had long discussions about what else we could do to identify individuals who may be left behind. Whether it was discussing opening up library services, extending senior center services, or other town hall services. We did, by all means, spend a lot of time, a great deal of time, thinking about and talking through what else we may need to do to identify people who normally we are not aware of, who may need our services.
You know, I'll be honest with you, that is fascinating. And for those who may not have heard this story, Norm, I'm going to tell this story. When Norman first came to be our town manager, he stood with me in that next room, and there was something going on in the community that some people were against, and they were making noises about it. And I remember being very impressed when your first response was, bring them in, let's put them on a show, let us have the conversation, and let us understand. And at that moment, I was your biggest fan. And I just think that it's so awesome that spirit of openness, you are also now just talking about reaching the people who are not easily reached over the internet. So that kind of thought process is really, really fascinating to me. And I wonder if you have any examples. I do know that Amy from the Senior Center, she's doing a Zoom show that we put on the air in HCAM so that, you know, seniors who may not be on the internet are still getting some connection with her. She's talking about things that are happening, that are going on. And it's just another way for her to reach them beyond the newsletters and the phone calls that they make and all the other great outreach. And I know the library's been trying to work hard. But I'm just curious if you have like anything close to hand that you could kind of say that's going around in your thought process.
Yeah, I'll share with you a couple of methods that we used. One was simply relying on the individuals that the town is already connected to and asking them question. Is there anybody else in your network who you think might need our services and may not be able to reach us?
Okay, I get that. What do they call it? Word of mouth.
Word of mouth. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's all word of mouth. And the other avenue that we have used is to rely on the past practice and past work of the civic organizations that the town is now interacting with. For example, we have an ongoing program with Project Just Because. That's an entity that reaches out to an audience that is wider than people who come to town hall.
Mm-hmm.
And also remember, part of our services, be it the senior center, be it the fire department, be it the police department, they also interact with many residents in the community. And so we rely on that past knowledge and their past experience to identify individuals that normally would not be immediately known to us here at Town Hall. So word of mouth, as well as relying on some of our civic organization networks in the community.
That's great. You know, it's interesting. There is a woman in town who she's my example. She doesn't use the internet, but she's interested. She's very civic minded. Sometimes she wants to have her say in some of these public meetings, and many of them are on Zoom now. So she has the information. She uses her phone and she calls in, and she's able to interact with them. So that's that's like an opportunity for her not to be stymied by the fact that she doesn't have Zoom. She watches it on HCAM, but she also has taken the next step to use her phone to get connected, which I think is a great example too.
Yes, and in fact, in that regard, again, through the generosity of the community, we have been able to expand our telephone footprint by way of giving cell phones to most of our front-facing employees here at Town Hall, making them more accessible by phone. Again, understanding that people work from 8 until 4:30.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'd like to get back to just when you were talking about the town had made investments in the past and had been improving their technology, and then the pandemic hit and kind of threw everything into overdrive. I haven't noticed. Everything looked pretty seamless from my point of view. You all transitioned to online Zoom meetings without very much trouble. And there were, you had phone connections going on where people could still interact. Did you find, when you look back, that you were really pleased with how you were able to do, or did you get some action items through that transition saying that, oh, here are some lessons that we've learned that we're going to carry forward and do something differently?
Yes. Clearly, for the most part, I think what worked well was the fact that most of our employees were trained and comfortable with the technology that we deployed to help with the working remotely. The pieces where we may need to improve upon include making sure that, for one, when we're asking employees to work remotely, that they are appropriately set up to do that. There's this assumption that you can pick up your laptop and you show up at home and things will work seamlessly. There is more to working remotely and working from home from the employee's perspective that we need to address going forward. The other piece that we need to do a better job of going forward is how we send the message to the community about the steps that we are taking when we are making such transitions. Communication is always important. We find, I'll tell you, so many times I'm sitting in meetings and I'm answering questions regarding what we are doing to enhance our communication capabilities, only for me to hear from people, sorry, we did not know about that. And that's a challenge. That's a challenge that I'm putting out there to the community, that if people have ideas as to how we can better improve our communication, we're willing to have that conversation. There's nothing as frustrating as, hey, we sent an email, we put it online, we put it on Facebook, we sent a Twitter message, and people say, no, we didn't get those messages.
Yes, I know. Try being a communications company and you're saying the same thing. You're like, really, guys? This is what we do. And, we got to make sure we try to get everybody.
Yeah.
So now, during all of this, I don't really know anything about this. I have had conversations with the superintendent, and I don't know where it came from, but there was funding from either the federal government or the state government that allowed them to, purchase things like fogging machines or different pieces of software or technology. Did the town also get assistance in making some of these transitions and improvements?
Yes, correct. You are referring to the CARES Act funding.
Correct.
The town received approximately $1.6 million In addition, there were additional funds that were made available specifically to the schools department. But I can share with you that $1.6 million is available to both the town and the schools.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Now this I'm interested in because, I have a studio that we've been closed, and we think a lot about how we open, and we're being very cautious with that because we don't want anybody to get hurt. How has your opening, to the extent that you have, how has that adjusted or impacted your cleaning protocols and how you take care of the building?
Yeah, tremendously. I give credit to several teams here at Town Hall. First and foremost, the Hopkinton Emergency Management Group, led by our Emergency Management Director, Chief Slayman, worked out a re-entry plan. That re-entry plan was based on input from all the town departments. With regard to cleaning services, the bulk of that work is done by the facilities department, headed by Dave, Matt, and Steve, and Nay. With regard to their specific response to COVID-19, we have our regular employees doing the bulk of the work, and Dave has skillfully now contracted out with a private company that goes through all town facilities twice a day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really impressive. Wow.
Yeah. The safety and the health of our employees comes first.
That's great. That's honestly, that's just really great, because at the end of the day, what is more important than that? Everything else just doesn't rise to that level of keeping people safe. Yeah. Now, we actually had Chief Slayman on once talking about the reentry plan. And I'm just curious, when I was going through the summer, I was saying, you know what? Things are looking good, but we are going to wait until after August and September, once school gets started, and how things are going then. And since then, for the past couple months, I've been a little concerned at the way the numbers are going, not only just in America, but just, in Massachusetts as well. And I've also been pleasantly surprised that it looks like schools are doing pretty well. Schools are not super spreader events like, we were kind of worried that it could happen, but masks everywhere, sanitation things all over the place, physical distancing, and, it seems to be going really well. There's a lot of kids inside those four walls at one time. I'm just curious what your thoughts are and what you see happening and where you get your direction from when you're making your plans for the future for our town.
Yeah. Again, on that aspect, credit goes to the school committee, the school superintendent, the principals, as well as everybody else who worked on the school re-entry plan. On the town side, Sean McAuliffe, Health Services Director, Casey Mora, the Public Health Nurse, working alongside the Hopkinton Emergency Management Group, as well as the Board of Health, did a great job preparing us for the school re-entry. And I think it is because of the thoughtfulness, the very deliberate effort that went into making sure that the teachers, the school kids, everybody else who works on the school system are safe and well. And also, as you have heard from Sean McAuliffe, continuously emphasizing the fundamentals: social distancing, wear your mask, practice good hygiene, and everything else will work fine. That plan seems to have worked for the town. And also, as you have heard from Sean, we did so well that most communities are constantly calling Sean for guidance.
Mm. Yeah, that's great. They are a great team. And you know what I was thinking about as you were talking about that? I was thinking that you are the town manager, and I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would think a large percentage of your job is interacting with people, is meeting with people, making decisions, getting input, holding meetings. How's your job going, Norman?
That's a good question. Clearly, a great deal has changed in terms of how the office conducts its work. For one, I'm used to having everybody else around me here at Town Hall. If I have a question, I run into Elaine's office. I go down to Tim's office downstairs. That has changed. So I'm now having to rely on email communication, phone communication, and video conferencing. With regard to meeting individuals, which is something that I really like, I really enjoy about this job. It gives me the opportunity to meet with so many town residents who have very interesting and unique perspectives about what makes this community such a great community. It's changed. I've always benefited from running into people as I'm walking down Main Street or Grove Street, or walking into the dry cleaner. That aspect of my work, that resource, that wonderful resource, is somewhat limited. The communication is largely now by phone, by email, or video conferences. We have held multiple video conferences with our town hall teams, meeting with residents to discuss ongoing issues. Similarly, I've always enjoyed having board members walk into town hall and exchange ideas. That is now limited to phone, email, and video conferencing. Clearly, that's a change. However, it's a change that I believe is going to be with us for a long time. Looking forward, looking ahead. It's a change that is going to be part and parcel of how we do business going forward, I believe.
Now, I don't know if you're through the process enough yet where you can answer this, but let me ask it anyways. So when we first had to close, and I had to say to myself, how do we make a TV show without a TV studio? That was how we came up with the Hangout Hour, which we produced over Zoom. I would originally was a little bit sad because it's not the quality that we're accustomed to. However, on the other side of after going through that, it was very apparent to us that this was an aspect that's going to stay with us. This really accentuates community. We were able to bring more people into the show and into our station than we could before by bringing it this way. So even when hopefully early next year, mid next year, things really get better and we can get back more to the way that we have been, there will be a place for this type of programming at our studio. And is there anything when you look back over the past 6 to 8 months that you say, there's been a lot of challenges, but this thing I really like, and I'm gonna continue it forward?
Yes, I think top on that list is the chat function, where residents can can submit questions or reach out to town employees via the chat function. It's worked very well, especially for the treasurer, finance offices. I think that's an aspect of that's an approach to our work imposed on us by COVID-19 that we would like to continue going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's good. That's a great example.
Yeah.
And actually, let's talk about going forward. Norman, how is Hopkinton doing? We all set for 2021?
Hopkinton, I think, is doing great. We have started the budget process for FY 2022. The annual town meeting process for calendar year 2021 is moving into gear and will be picking up in January. We're also looking forward to the commencement of the Main Street Corridor project construction phase. We're still waiting for Mass DOT to announce the winning bid.
Oh.
However, overall, the community continues to do very well. We are looking forward to a successful budget process, a successful legislative process through annual town meeting, and hopefully also getting the construction of the Main Street Corridor project starting smoothly.
So the 2021, the 2020-21 fiscal year was crazy. And, you know, the governor had directives and things were, you know, town meeting was pushed back and you could like release funding based upon the year before. There was just a lot of moving different parts for this year. As the town is planning and preparing for 2021-22, is your process looking more like a regular process, or are things still a little bit different?
Yeah, as far as the budget process is concerned, I think, you know, there are two spheres of influence. There's the external sphere and then there's the local sphere. I think, as you can tell, on the external side, specifically at the state level, the state budget process is still going through the FY21 budget. The Senate just started meeting today to go over its budget proposal. However, the good thing is that the Charlie Baker administration has been very committed, working together with the legislature in making sure that all communities kept whole with regard to local aid. And so therefore, looking ahead, I still see the state process being in flux and not necessarily lining up with our budget process here locally. And then at the local level, we're maintaining our regular budget schedule, hoping that our annual town meeting next year is going to be in May. Should there be a need to adjust that schedule, we will work collaboratively with all stakeholders here in town to make sure that we account for the needs for those changes, as well as the budget needs of all of our departments.
So that's interesting. Now, I know the state can have a large role to play in projects such as, I call it Hopkinton's Big Dig, the Main Street Corridor project. So they are providing a significant amount of funding for that. On our general budget, how big of an impact does the state have on that? Is it large or is it small compared to what we take care of in our community?
The state contribution to our budget is significant in terms of helping us meet the needs, but it's overall dwarfed by the local taxation.
Okay. All right. I really am looking forward to the construction next year too. I think it's exciting. I thought that they had started until we had Dave on the show saying that, oh, they're just getting the prep work ready for it. I think,
you're not the only one, because people are seeing construction crews along Main Street.
Yeah.
That's the construction of the Eversource gas project. It's not the Main Street Corridor project.
Right. So I don't know if you know, is it like spring going to be May or June that we'll see action?
Hopefully we'll begin seeing action as early as the beginning of spring.
Wow, that's awesome. Really looking forward. What a difference that's gonna make, huh?
Yeah.
All right. We only have 30 seconds left. Norman, is there anything else on the top of your desk that you're working on for our town?
Yeah, again, I think for me, it's to use this opportunity to thank the community for its understanding and support through the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as extend the town's sympathies to those who have lost their loved ones. For those who are sick, we wish them well. And our message is together, we'll get through this.
That's awesome. That is a great place to leave that to. I thank you so much for taking the time to be with us again. And I look forward to seeing you again in the not too distant future.
Hey, Jim, thank you for the work that you're doing, keeping the community informed, and also for hosting me this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Talk to you soon.
Okay, take care.
And thank you for watching this edition of the Hangout Hour. We hope that you'll join us again on Wednesday at 7, where we'll have another live hour of community conversation. Take care, everybody.